Hey guys, what's up? Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/eggs show. That's EGGSSHOW. Audible has more than 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or just about any device you can imagine. As Eggs listeners, you can download a free audiobook today by visiting audibletrial.com/eggs show.
Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. Cars broke down, I missed the bus that runs at 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day. Oh, 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 oh. No, 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 no. Oh, 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 oh.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another great episode of Eggs. Today we have a special guest. His name is Keegan Hall. He's a Seattle-based artist. I wouldn't necessarily say graphic designer. I almost said graphic designer, but I think you're more of a fine artist just in what you do. He specializes in charcoal portraitures and other types of art. And I met him or kind of came across his work on Instagram and reached out, and he was willing to come on the show. So here we are, and welcome to the show. Keegan, thank you for making the time for us.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, sorry about all the confusion at the beginning. We had a little snafu with our email, but we're here and we're live, and thanks for making the time for us. And Eggs is kind of like Ryan was saying a little earlier. We go back and kind of get your back history on your career. And I don't know how early that is, when your career started, but can you kind of give us just a basic overview of your work history?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively short in the context of art. I just got back into it actually just a few years ago, and it was kind of due to unfortunate circumstance. I lost my mom unexpectedly. She passed away. Yeah, thank you. And it was really that through that process, that mourning process was the catalyst of me getting back into art. So, I mean, it was, to back up a little bit before that, I grew up drawing all the time, obviously, and I actually went to the University of Washington's School of Art.
Okay.
And got a degree in art. So, and got to study abroad in Italy and do lots of fun stuff on the art side there. And then upon graduation, I basically had a lot of people telling me that I wasn't that good. And, after hearing that, you're not that good, you need to get a real job, all those kind of negative thoughts and sentiments, I eventually started to believe them and got a job in the real world. What
was your real world job?
So my first job out of college, so my second love after art is sports.
Okay.
So, particularly basketball. So I went to work for the Seattle Sonics.
Oh, that had to be fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. Spent 5 years with the team. We only made the playoffs one time out of those 5 years. But yeah, just awesome experience. Really cool group of people that I worked with, and kind of went on from there. But yeah, I had no plans on going back to art at all. Just in kind of business career mode.
And I think I read something about you were maybe involved with some startups, things like that along the way early on too.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, after the Sonics left, I actually went back to grad school and got my MBA. So, after finishing my business degree there, did join a startup kind of from the very ground floor. I was employee number one, joining the founders. And we raised about $4 million and worked on this mobile app for about 3.5 years before it was ultimately acquired. So
great.
yeah, lots of
And that
background
company
in
was
tech marketing.
Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the app?
It was called Perk, PIRQ, and it's still out there. It's essentially a digital loyalty platform for small business owners and their customers.
Oh, nice. What was your role in the app development process?
I oversaw the sales team and the marketing efforts.
Okay.
So a lot of the design and messaging and partnerships. And I mean, when you're in a startup, you wear all the hats. So,
Right.
Yeah, pretty cool role to be there from the beginning to the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and so is your background, like, have you always been artistic? Like, you say you were working in marketing and advertising at the app. I mean, were you, I guess, a designer by trade, or where did you pick up these skills?
Yeah, I mean, it was really, I've just always been a very curious kid. So growing up, I obviously did a lot of art. I would buy lots of comics, as you see kind of behind me here, and I would never really read them. I would just kind of draw from them. So that's, and in addition to art, I mentioned sports, but I also kind of had that entrepreneurial bug early on where I remember my parents would bowl in a bowling league every Tuesday night. And I learned how to make these little stuffed animal bears and as part of a school project. And I used to make them and then take them to the bowling alley and sell them for $1 each. So I kind of always had this in my mind, this whole business / art / trying to figure out how it could all fit together down the road. So it's all kind of evolved. Both sides kind of at different times have been kind of developing on their own. And kind of now I've been able to put both of them together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So how does that work? So, I mean, you spend a bunch of time in sort of the business world. You have this unfortunate incident in your family, and you decide to go back into art and sort of pursue art again, or maybe anew. Can you talk a little bit about how that began and like why art was the outlet for you?
Yeah. I mean, when I lost my mom, I was obviously not in a great place because I was really close with her. And a few months after her passing, I remember I was just thinking about her and my childhood and all the great memories that we had. And art was a constant reoccurring theme in many of those great memories growing up. So for whatever reason, I just sat down and drew a picture, something I hadn't done in nearly 10 years. And drew a picture of Michael Jordan, who was my favorite player of all time. And I remember I posted that online with real no expectations, but I put it on Facebook, I think. And, a bunch of friends were like, wow, I didn't even know you could draw. That's so great. Very cool. And one person asked me if I could draw a picture of Cam Chancellor for them. And they would even pay me $100. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich off this. And I did that and posted that picture of Cam Chancellor, and Cam saw that and then shared it with all of his followers on not only Twitter but also Instagram, and then asked me to do a piece for him. And that whole process of working with Cam was really the first opportunity for me to showcase my art to the world. And it was a pretty big stage being able to leverage his audience at the same time.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's amazing how that the reciprocation, someone shares something and all of a sudden you get a lot of attention from it. Has that been kind of your main source of marketing, is just Instagram and people sharing your work?
Yes, I mean, social media has just been ridiculously beneficial for me. And I think art in general plays well on Instagram's platform. Obviously, it's very visual. And then you kind of combine that with, at least my approach to using social is, I like to take people inside the creation process of my art. So they really get to see it from the very beginning where I'm drawing the first pencil strokes.
What are you working on? You're working on one right now. I think it's with Russell Wilson and Pete, the head coach. How long have you been working on that piece? Because it seems like it's been going on for a minute now. And it's cool to see the updates. Like, I spent 4 hours on his nose today.
Yeah, this one is interesting because I don't know how many hours I put into it yet, but I estimate at the end it'll be over 100.
That's crazy.
Wow. Because it's about twice the size of what I normally do. So it's actually pretty large. And then, of course, I am just obsessed with the details. So I just can't move on to a piece of the drawing without making it really tight and crisp. Like, I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of art, and when you're far away, it looks really, really good and detailed and almost like a photo. And as you get closer to it,
pixelates and
yeah, it really starts to break apart, and you can see, that it is a piece of artwork after all. And I'm trying to really push the limit on that, where you can get right up to my drawing, put your nose on it, and you still can't distinguish that it's just a pencil drawing.
That's so
At
crazy.
least that's the goal.
That's
awesome.
insanity.
No, it's funny too. I draw a lot, and when I was a kid, it's funny because I did many of the same things you've described. I bought the comic books. I never read them, so my wife's always asking me, "Oh, who did whatever?" I have no idea, but I bought them all, and I have them all, and but I always bought them to draw. I had a pretty influential art teacher in like seventh grade that was a comic book artist himself as a trade. And so I got really into it for a long time. And so I used that as a way to draw. And I also was interested in sports. And so I chased down a bunch of them. And you have a picture in the little video montage that you have at the top of your website that is a drawing of Ken Griffey Jr. And I think it's either from, I remember seeing a similar photo on like the front of a Beckett magazine and also on his rookie card. And I have that same drawing, or one very similar, similar pose and everything, but it was based on sort of the same idea. Mine don't look anything like yours, but
His consists of stick figures.
At this point, I'm more of a cartoonist or an illustrator. I struggle with faces. No matter what I do, I can't get faces right. So I can do the rest, but faces kill me. I can never capture somebody's likeness very well. So, but anyway, really cool, and it's fun to hear about your journey. And it's such I guess it seems sort of diametrically opposed to the startup culture, or the guy that's in the startup world. So it's kind of interesting or exciting to hear about that.
Yeah, I think that the two worlds are very different, but there's also a lot of overlap too, particularly on how you approach the business side of it. I think that the art industry in general is pretty old and traditional, so that it's very ripe for disruption and kind of bringing a new model to it that maybe hasn't been done before, at least doing it a little bit differently. So it's been fun kind of, trying lots of different things, just going back to my, business days of you never know what's going to work. So you just try and test lots of things and refine and try it again and see what sticks. So I've been kind of following that same blueprint with the art world as well.
So how much of your day, or how much credence do you pay to sort of the old way? I saw that you're being shown in some galleries and things, and versus using modern technology like Instagram and things for exposure. What are you finding are the most prolific routes for selling artwork these days?
I found that I think that the traditional model is very much gallery driven. So if you're an artist and you want to kind of make it in this world, you have to get in a gallery. That's the only way to sell original works. And I think very much of the traditional industry, at least because I came up through art school, right? And that was always the mindset there too. That's just how it is. So I remember when I first got into the gallery, they typically want you to sign an exclusive representation agreement where, even if your artwork sells, even if you sell your own artwork, they still get half of the commission, stuff
crap.
like that. And that's just what every artist signs, right? That's just an industry standard. And I wouldn't sign that, because that's not how I operated. And luckily I found a gallery that was willing to work with me on that. So if I brought my own buyer to the table, I would just sell my own work and, obviously keep the full amount.
Right.
So, but yeah, some of those little small things like that have been interesting to see how it works out. And also the idea that you can't sell original artwork unless people see it in person, which obviously reinforces that gallery mentality.
Sure.
And I found that not to be true as well, where I've been able to really showcase work online on Instagram. People have enjoyed it and, have purchased it thereafter.
So are you seeing a lot of results from like the crowdfunding type sources? Are you able to do like Indiegogo type campaigns or, something similar to that effect as you're designing the product and sell pre-releases?
I haven't done any of those traditional crowd source funding options. Maybe that would be interesting to test. But I have started pre-selling work as just a way of, getting some early revenue in the door. So even this piece now, like it's available right now for pre-sale, and people, have kind of reserved their copies so to speak. So that might be an interesting model. Although interestingly, a lot of my artwork is charity driven. So I do fundraising, but it's not on any of those platforms. And I obviously donate all that money.
What's like your go-to charity? Like what do you focus on?
I literally work with hundreds of charities. I don't have like a single one. So I really want to partner with them and what they're doing and see how I can help what they're already doing versus trying to build my own. Like my wife is always like, you should start your own nonprofit. And, it's a whole nother animal when you get into running your own show there. So I would prefer to partner with them. But I think in the last few years, I think we're well over $400,000 raised.
Yeah, I think you said it's 406 on your website, which is quite a bunch of money, actually. I mean, congratulations on that.
That's amazing.
So
yeah, thank you. And that really goes back to, I don't know if you kind of checked out my very first one, how that all came about. But my whole journey back into art is just ridiculous.
Well, that's what I was going to say, actually. Maybe let's take a little bit of a step backwards. We kind of, got off the path a little bit, and maybe let's talk a little bit more linearly about that. You made the step to get back into art and sort of how you were able to get that going. I think that part of the story is really key.
Yeah, again, it was nothing was really planned out early on. I had that opportunity with Cam Chancellor, which was amazing, and he's just a good dude. I've gotten to know him pretty well since then, and just a really, really great guy. But as I started to get back into just drawing in general and starting to see like a genuine enjoyment and appreciation for my work, I had this thought in the back of my mind really from the beginning of how can I use this to help other people? Like what options are there? And, of course you can do an original drawing and donate to that to, a charity of some kind, and they'll auction it off. And, it's kind of like one drawing, one donation. And that's kind of the model that I've seen in the past. But so I came up with this idea where if I could do a really cool drawing and team up with an athlete, and then we make prints. And I don't know where I'd come up with this idea of 200 prints, but 200 prints for $200 each was the idea. And the goal was to raise money for basically kids that were similar to me growing up. So I grew up in a pretty poor environment. I lived in a trailer park for the majority of my life, and finally moved into a real house once I got into high school. And then I have one sister who is handicapped. She has cerebral palsy. So that was kind of my childhood.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was tough. But I think when you don't know what you don't know. So I just thought that's how it was for everybody. But looking back, I think there's a lot of kids currently that were in the same situation I was. So if I could give back with my art to help them, that's what I wanted to do. And again, had this idea. And just randomly reached out to Richard Sherman on Twitter. Again, no introductions from anybody, but just like tweeted at him saying, "Hey, I have this charity idea, and can I DM you my idea?" And he actually replied and was like, "Yeah." So I DM'd him my idea, 200 for 200, and he was like, "That's awesome, let's do it." And I was like, "Wow, okay, here we go." And I remember as it all kind of came together. We finally announced the fundraiser on a Monday, and the on sale date was going to be the Friday, a few days away. So we had that whole week to kind of promote it, and it just kind of blew up, not only across social media, but it made its way into news and even international news. And so once Friday rolled around, they sold out instantly. So we raised $40,000 on the first day, and then donated 100% of it. So
that's
it was
amazing.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
What year was that? Like, was that when the Seahawks were on the run for the Super Bowl and kind of in that time frame?
Yeah, they had the Legion of Boom.
Yeah,
Obviously,
dude, that was such a good time.
Yeah, and that was actually what the drawing that drawing was the Legion of Boom, kind of their pregame huddle where they kind of sway back and forth. And Sherman was right in the middle of that. So Sherman and I signed and numbered 200 of those and sold. And that really launched a whole new model and even fundraising, because I kind of use a similar model, and it's grown and evolved since then. But that was the first one that has led to so many more after.
That's neat. Right around that same time frame, and this is kind of how I came to know you. You did a picture of, what's his name?
Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick. And it was right around the same time where he was doing his take a knee stance. And I think a friend of mine shared that and posted a comment on it. And I saw the quality of work that you put out, and I instantly started following you on Instagram. Can you talk about that scenario and just the process of putting that picture out?
Yeah, I mean, that was, as I kind of watched that whole scenario unfold of him taking a knee and then seeing that incredible negative reaction that a lot of people in the public took, I just was shaking my head like, really? Like he's standing up for people that don't have a voice. And it seemed very obvious to me that he was doing the right thing. But yet, like, society was very much kind of crucifying him for this position of trying to help other people. And I would just constantly, this thought was really ruminating in my mind of, I was like, man, I need to do a piece of artwork that really captures what I feel. And then also my perspective as a white guy in relation to this racial injustice issue.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was born.
So
can you talk a little bit about that, though? So, I mean, first you created the piece, but, I mean, did it catch steam in the press? Like, I mean, what came from doing that piece?
Yeah, I mean, a couple different things. I think a lot of people, first of all, had only seen my sports art of, like, players doing their sport.
Yeah.
So this was kind of a step outside of what they're used to seeing me do. And it also was very much, I guess it's quite controversial as it turned out. I mean, initially my concept I thought was relatively tame. I mentioned that he was, figuratively being crucified by the public for his beliefs. So I wanted to capture kind of that literal crucifixion.
Yeah,
so,
didn't you draw him on a cross or something?
He's on a cross. So again, the concept was, thousands of people have been crucified over the years, and it's like the most embarrassing public display of, being at fault for something that public has deemed you guilty of. And it really had nothing to do with religion at all. It was, very much the former there. But yet people wanted to quickly draw the relationship between religion and say that I was comparing him to Jesus. And that's really, I think, what set off the firestorm of reactions across social media.
I could see that. Did you get a lot of, like, death threats, hate mail kind of stuff, or was it just more, screw you, how dare you kind of thing?
No, I got the full gamut. I mean, it was interesting because, as you mentioned, when I do a new drawing, I post updates every day, videos and images as I progress through it. And I usually like to take people inside the creation process and tell them what I'm working on or something like that. But for that piece was a little bit different, where I really wanted to write almost like a little mini essay on a different component of the racial injustice in America from my perspective. So people that followed it from the beginning very much knew that I wasn't trying to cause a fight or an uproar, and it wasn't about religion. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed kind of the unraveling of the drawing, as well as kind of my thoughts on the subject, and they understood it. And there's a mutual respect. But kind of as a test, I remember I was very curious to see, because I did get some reactions throughout this process about the cross and stuff, but I was like, I wonder what would happen if I just put this on Facebook and promoted it to a group that has never seen it.
Just to see what the reaction would be.
Yeah, just see what, and that's what I think people, and I ironically, in the description, I wrote out what it was all about. And I detailed it's not about religion, it's about this, and either people didn't read it or didn't care. But I still look back on that post now on Facebook, and you can see all these people just flaming me, like, fuck you, go to hell, like, you're going to be burned for this. And it was crazy.
It's mind-boggling to me, just the way people handle stuff like that. It's
oh,
crazy.
Man, yeah. Then that was my first real exposure to
the political world.
Well, yeah, because I guess your artwork, like you mentioned, isn't particularly controversial. It's athletes doing their athletic thing, and so there's not a ton of room for people to get real upset. So I'm sure that this was kind of a venture into a whole new world where you're playing on people's emotions. Most people aren't as smart as you give them credit for, and they're not reading what you've written. They're just having a gut reaction to the image, and yeah, I could see how that might go a little sideways.
Well, but
Yeah.
props for actually taking the time and doing a political piece like that, and putting some thought into it and putting it out there, because people aren't going to learn unless people stand up for stuff, and I think that it's important that people like you put stuff like that out there. So
No, I appreciate that. And that was just the idea. I mean, I've never been afraid to like share my opinion, so I wasn't worried about like, I didn't get worried when the backlash came as in terms of like me feeling bad that people didn't like my art or something like that.
Yeah.
Because I knew I created it for the right reasons. So I totally stand behind kind of the theme and the concept and what it represents. So, but it was kind of eye-opening to see the negative side of how people can respond to this issue, and it seemed like such an obvious issue that needs to be addressed. So
you've kind of become like a Seattle icon almost in the art world, anyways. A lot of your the people that you draw are Seattle athletes, or like Macklemore. I thought I saw one of Pearl Jam. I don't.
Chris Cornell.
And have you had a chance to meet all those guys, or is it just kind of like you pick it, do the work, and then tag them in it when you're done?
Yeah, the Macklemore one, that was one of our fundraisers. So Macklemore, Ryan Lewis, and I all teamed up, and ironically, that was the first fundraiser I did for social injustice.
Oh,
okay.
interesting.
And they were really the ones that opened my eyes to it, to be honest, because I think, it's easy for each of us to kind of live in our bubble and do our daily lives. And maybe you don't see a lot of that's happening if, you live in a certain part of town where it just doesn't happen as often. So you think, oh, this doesn't happen anywhere. Or at least you don't really think much about it. And I think that's probably where that was the spot that I was in. I was like, oh, this stuff really still happens in today's day and age. And they were like, yeah, it does. And it's a big problem. And I started asking a few of my black friends, and they were like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, yeah. And when I walk into a store, people are like looking at me funny, and they just give me all these examples. And I think that process of working with, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, and then of course talking about the cause that we were supporting, I think opened my eyes up even more so, and it really led into that Colin Kaepernick piece afterwards. That once I was exposed to it, it's hard to kind of look away.
Yeah.
Once you kind of know what's really happening.
What's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So speaking a little bit of politics, but maybe on the upper note, you had the opportunity to draw a image for Barack Obama. And apparently he came to Seattle to see it. And I don't know if this is the time frame. I'm sure he's been to Seattle a bunch of times.
Well, usually when a president comes to Seattle, we all remember because it's gridlock.
Yeah, yeah, and that was the point I was going to make. Is Mike and I had gone to a Seahawks game the day Obama came into town, and we were leaving the game, and both the freeways were closed. Because they have to have the one he's on and the one that he might be on closed. So we got to see Air Force One take off while we were sitting in gridlock on the highway. So that was pretty exciting. So I don't know if this was that visit or not. But
it was. Yeah, I don't know that one. It was probably one of those, though.
Wouldn't surprise me.
It does happen every time he visits, for sure.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that experience? I mean, were you able to meet him when he came to pick up the piece, or?
What was crazy is that came about super last minute. So I already had a trip planned to California. And a couple days before I left, I was approached by the governor's office here in Washington State. And they said, hey, Obama's coming to town for a fundraiser. And, we really want to give him something special that, would really represent Seattle and him. And, would you be interested in doing a piece? And again, this was 2 days before I was about to leave. And my art takes a long time to do.
So the next 48 hours straight, you're sitting there.
Yeah, I was doing the math. I was talking to my wife. I was like, I literally don't think I could finish a drawing in that amount of time. So I was almost going to tell him, like, I can't do it. And then I was just like, man, when would I ever get this opportunity again to do a piece for the president? So I literally did back-to-back days of like 17, 18-hour days strate. Wow. And normally I do like 4 hours max because it's very mentally intensive. Your hand cramps up, I'm sure, and it's just, I can't even imagine. Yeah. Yeah, it was tough. So I just did like a marathon session where I didn't leave my studio. And on the way to the airport, basically dropped it off at the framer, and away I went. And I was just hoping that, I would get some kind of a confirmation that he received it and what he thought. So a friend who was at the event took a picture of him and Inslee talking about it. And he kind of told me, he's like, yeah, Obama remembered that moment. Because they didn't actually give me any guidelines on what to draw or what to create. They're like, whatever you want to do. So I was like, oh, God, this is a lot of pressure.
Well, that's like the ultimate pressure for an artist.
Well, yeah, for people that
complete freedom.
Yeah, for people who haven't seen the piece, it's basically a picture of Barack and his wife dancing together. And it is a nice moment. It's very cool. And so to think about it as... you had to pick this out of a hat, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people may have gone political, or here's Obama on the stump, or here's Obama, but, speaking at the podium or whatever, something more presidential. Yet this was probably much more meaningful because it was some, moment of their life.
Yeah, and that was really what I was thinking too. I mean, I think he's probably gotten lots of artwork over the years of him. And I was thinking, man, if somebody created a really cool piece for me, I would love it if it featured my wife.
Right.
Yeah. So that's actually what it did. It's very prominently features Michelle, and you kind of just see him from like a side profile view. So he's really not the focus at all. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually what he really liked about it too. Once he received it.
Well, it's a different take on what you might think of. Like if he's receiving a lot of like fan art and things like that, like. This is a different take on that. And I think it's, a much stronger piece for that.
Totally. And actually the coolest thing about this, which I learned after the fact, was officially the piece of artwork is a gift from the state of Washington to the president. So technically it's a gift from a dignitary, which means it can only end up in one of two places. Either he's going to take it home with him because he really likes it, so it's in his house right now, or it's going to end up in the presidential library that's being built in Chicago.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
that's pretty
if
cool.
I never see it again in Chicago, then I guess that's a good thing too.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, hopefully, he's got like an extra pardon laying around or something you can use at some point.
Write a letter like, hey.
There ought to be some kind of letter on your behalf. He can get you out of something, I would hope.
I hope so. Yeah, he owes me one.
Well, that's awesome. Great. Can you talk about any other sort of like career highlights? Maybe something maybe less obvious that we wouldn't have just picked up in our research, but something else that, a piece of art that impacted you profoundly or did something great for a community?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a piece I did. So I worked with a lot of the Seahawks, from, Russell and Michael Bennett and Cam, and I mean, just almost like the whole team, it feels like.
At the good years too, like Legion of Boom and the that'd be fun.
Yeah, so there was a kid from my hometown. So I'm from the small town of Sumner, Washington, and who had this basically this death sentence of a diagnosis. So, and the family has been trying to raise money to save their kid's life for a while now, and they reached out and asked if I could maybe help out and do a piece. And obviously I jumped at the opportunity, and I drew this piece called the Pro Bowlers, where I drew, it was like the 7 Seahawks Pro Bowlers from that season on one drawing. And then I got all of the players to sign the original.
Wow.
And then we auctioned that off, and obviously donated all the money to the family. So that was just a really cool opportunity for me to kind of get even more involved with my local community. And then really art in general, I think it's opened so many doors for me in other areas. Like I get to go to a lot of schools now and talk to kids.
That's cool.
And share my story of, kind of where I grew up to art. And I think art is kind of that universal language that anyone can relate to. And kids obviously really like to see it. And then when you layer on kind of the athletes component of it, they really enjoy it, and I kind of wrap it around a message of dreaming big and perseverance and hard work. So it's been pretty well received. It's been really cool to be able to kind of share that experience with all these students, across the state.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, and it's interesting, that we're talking about that specifically. So, for people who don't know, prior to the show, a lot of times we'll send out a little questionnaire to kind of gather some information. And one of the things, or one of the questions we ask is if you could go back in time and tell your younger self one thing, what would it be? And so, and I assume that this is part of the messaging that you tell these students and stuff as you're going around to the schools, because it's really powerful messaging. But I'd like to dig in on it a little bit because it's a recurring thing that keeps coming up. So your response to that was, to not be scared because, not to be worried that other people are judging you, having missed out on opportunities when you were young because you cared too much about what others thought. Now, I think that most of us, at least our logical brain, can look at this and recognize, yes, that's true. Obviously we're being held back by other people's or our beliefs about other people. I wonder if you couldn't, talk a little bit about how you've done this in your life, how you actually overcame these fears and things like that, especially as not only just a businessman who was out raising money and stumping for his product and trying to gain the support of people, but putting yourself out also as an artist, both of which are platforms where you're being consistently judged by, audiences, groups of people, VCs, whatever it is. And, how you sort of are able to fight through that fear or that concern about what other people are thinking and just find the confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I think just starting back from the beginning when I was a kid, I think just from where I grew up to, with my going out in public with my sister and constantly being looked at and judged and stared at, I think I just developed this mental mindset that people are always looking at me and it's always a negative thought that they have. And I kind of just grew up with that. And obviously that was the downside of it, was that it held me back, as you mentioned, from doing a lot of things. 'Cause I never wanted to be the person to try new things. I never wanted to fail because then people would laugh at me. But on the other side, it also made me really competitive, where it's like I always thought people were looking at me and laughing at me. So it's like I need to really bust my ass to be good at something, so they don't laugh at me, kind of was the mindset. And it was, it's this kind of constant battle back and forth that I really grew up with. And it's interesting that I went into the world of sales as a profession early on, because I was such a quiet kid growing up, as you might expect as an artist and things like that. But I could always do very well connecting with people and talking with people and getting to know them, particularly in one-on-one environments. So when it came to a sale, like you're just working with one person, I did really, really well at that. I was actually the top salesman for the Sonics, and kind of grew from there. But then when the crowds got bigger, I would just freak out, and public speaking was like the worst thing that could happen to me. And I remember even as recent as graduate school, I would just freak out for my presentations that I had to do, and I would have to just memorize them so well that I would just go on autopilot mode. So I was just petrified. And then really things changed when I lost my mom. I think when you have something so drastic happen to you like that, so life altering, literally, that you kind of, I reassessed everything. Like, what's the point of all of this? Why are we here? Why am I spending so much time doing this versus that? Like, what's my real motivation in life? Like, what do I want to do with all this time? And I think that process, and just really being so shocked to my core of going through that, really just changed my mindset almost a 180, where I was like, I don't even care anymore because none of that crap matters. And I just wish I would have known that earlier on. And as a result, I started to take, bolder steps with my art. I started to put myself out in situations that I was previously really, really uncomfortable, most notably public speaking. So like visiting all these schools and stuff. And I just, as I kind of was trying to grow myself in a lot of respect, I was starting to realize the benefits that I was getting, not only from like a career standpoint, but just a personal growth standpoint. I wish I would have known all of this years ago, that most of this stuff that we surround ourselves with doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And there's only a handful of things that do. And so focus on those things that do matter. And then so many more great things will come as a result.
Yeah, I think that's nice. So can you can you, I guess, get into that a little bit more? So like this compassion and these things that you sort of found out about yourself, or you discovered that you had interest in. I mean, is that something that came from your parents? Like, I know that you mentioned that they were athletic and that they were, a very competitive bunch, I guess, if you're all athletic and everybody's involved in athletics. So that it makes sense that there'd be some maybe hard work or competitive nature sort of built into you. But does this compassion come from there too, or did it take the loss of your mom to recognize that?
I mean, I think it definitely came from my mom growing up. My sister, we were all athletes, even my sister. So she did Special Olympics, and
that's awesome.
And we would volunteer. And my mom was actually one of the coaches for Special Olympics.
I actually provided sound system a few times for the Special Olympics program in Tacoma at the Tacoma Dome. And we had in high school, we had a lady with Down syndrome that lived with us for a while. And because of that, I came out and helped at a few of them. And they're pretty interesting to watch, and it's cool to be a part of that community.
Oh, there's such a great event. I mean, it's interesting because you think like disabled people that they're just so different from, quote, normal people, right? And they don't have the same thoughts that we do. But then, and if you played sports, and if you won anything or even competed, kind of that competitive spirit that you have in your heart of just being able to compete or win. And when you see those kids do the same thing, they have those same emotions, and it's so cool to see them triumph and enjoy that success. And it's just, there's nothing like being around that. So, I kind of grew up in that environment too, of being around Special Olympics. And I even coached basketball, Special Olympics basketball one year. So it's just super duper rewarding. That's definitely been ingrained in me from an early age.
Yeah, well, and it makes sense growing up with a sibling who's had her struggles. It makes sense that would be sort of built into the family's sort of, core ethic. So that's really cool. So, but I'm still, I guess, kind of intrigued by, the businessman. And I mean, I don't know how you were in business. I assume that this compassion and this competitiveness have cohabitated for a long time with you. And so, but as you were building apps and doing things like that and overcoming this, trepidation or shyness or whatever you want to call it from your youth, growing up as an artist, it's I don't know, it's really impressive to me to be able to make such a left turn in your career.
Well, yeah, thank you. I'm glad it happened, honestly, because it's interesting. I have a daughter now, and she's 11, and it's
a fun age,
just like me as a kid. For a lot of the good things, she's really into art and things like that, but she's also a little bit shy too, and I can see kind of that side to her. So I really want to push her to not be afraid to do things.
Yeah, I have a 12-year-old. I think you're in my age, or pretty similar, and I've got a 12-year-old boy that's the same way, very artistic. He's coming out of his shell a little bit now at 12. He's starting to get a little looser, and there's some girl he thinks cute, so now he's texting her. It's coming on. He's coming online, but for the longest time he was, quiet, reserved, and we always joke that he's like raising an old cat. And our younger son, our 8-year-old, is like, on fire. Like, there's no keeping up with him. It's just incredible how different they are. But yeah, no. So it's interesting, and it's funny too how raising a kid changes your perspective a little bit too. It took. Even in my own business, as we grew. Like once we had kids, and then I started thinking more about legacy and making choices about, what happens, if I get hit by a bus and things like that. So it's kind of interesting, how just your whole perspectives shift.
Yeah, totally. I think at the end of the day, I just want her to be like a good person. So I've been kind of talking these lessons at her for many, many years before she was old enough to even comprehend what they are. And I just continue to talk them at her, and hopefully they're absorbing at some point. And I think as she's getting a little bit older now and starting to understand the world around her, I think those seeds are starting to slowly blossom, which is cool to see.
So what part of Seattle are you in? Are you in downtown, or are you in the outskirts?
I'm just across the bridge, though, so in Kirkland.
Oh, okay. That's a nice part of town.
So
I think I saw a photo with you standing next to a parking garage, and I think it's the one on Yesler.
Yeah.
All right. There's a nightclub right next to there called Trinity. I used to play it all the time.
Oh,
And,
really?
Yeah. When I lived in Seattle, I'm like, I recognize that parking garage.
I met my wife in Pioneer Square. So
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, small world.
So, what's next for you? What's on the docket? Like, are you gonna just keep doing artwork and kind of just do releases here and there, or do you have more on the books?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a naturally curious person, and I get obsessed with new ideas and try to learn as much as I can about them. So, I mean, another passion of mine has been real estate for a long time. So I've been kind of digging really deep into that area on the development side, even the design side, so the interior design, and some really cool things happening in that space. Of course, art will always be there, so I'm working with kind of bigger brands and bigger companies and making more of a sustainable business model out of it.
Can you kind of dive into that a little bit? Like, what do you mean by sustainable business model out of it? What's different? What are you changing from what you're doing currently?
I think a lot of artists, they're used to kind of one in, one out. Like, they do one drawing and sell it, and they have to reset and start over again. And it's just this hamster wheel that you can't get off of. You can never get ahead of, because your, art by nature is not scalable, right? So you can only do as much as you can produce as a single person.
Sure.
So I've tried to, and some of that's unavoidable, right? Because that's kind of the nature of art. It is what it is. But in addition to kind of continuously creating new pieces of art, I've also obviously been doing prints for a while. So you have an opportunity to really capture the long tail market.
Sure.
And as you continue to grow your portfolio of art, new people will be learning about your art, and they might find something that they like as the portfolio grows. And it's funny, I remember when I first created my website, I just felt so dumb doing it, because I was like, I have like one drawing, or I have like two prints.
I've been there.
This is so dumb.
I got a YouTube video that I captured at a wedding. I'll put that on there. It's like, come on, this is horrible.
It's like, this is so dumb. Like, no one's ever going to visit this site and buy one of the two prints. But over time, as the catalog grows and more exposure comes and people see it, new people see my work, and so you have that opportunity to keep sales moving even while you're working on another piece over here.
Do you usually do like a limited run on the prints? Like, you have the original for astronomical amount of money, but the prints are more affordable. Do you limit that to like 200?
I typically. So I have a few different options. So I usually have a collection if I'm teaming up for a fundraiser or something. All of those are limited to 200. So those are all individually signed and numbered. And then I do have another collection that's just an open edition, because I also wanted to make it very accessible. Like, I see some people selling prints for like hundreds of dollars for a print. I have two print options. One's $30 and one's $70.
Well, there you go. So, affordable, and still you get the work and not the $200 bill that goes with it.
Exactly.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, because part of
quality too.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to ask you a little bit about how that process works. I mean, I don't know if you've worked in other mediums and stuff, but I know people who paint and have a lot of trouble reproducing their art very well for a print. And I'm sure printing technology is getting better all the time. You're probably more able to do it nowadays. But I mean, what is the quality like of a print? Is it as compared to the original?
Do they just take a really high quality photo of it and replicate the photo, or how does that process work actually too?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I do. Once I finish a piece, I take it to a professional photographer and have them shoot it, kind of the right lighting, and because mine really ultimately look like black and white pictures, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
So the camera person has to know kind of what they're doing, because you got to find the right lighting to eliminate any shadowing, obviously, and then pencil by nature has a glare to it, so you got to really be able to balance that. So a lot of times I'll take a few of the pictures that I receive and combine them to create an image that has no glare from the pencil and the lighting. And then kind of just do some minor touch-ups to color correct. And that's pretty much it. So It definitely can be done. The prints come out really, really nice and really high quality because they're actually smaller than the original a little bit.
Oh, so you can compress it a little bit.
A little bit.
Exactly. So you don't lose any of that loss of detail or anything.
Well, because I think that's the real beauty of like pencil art is, you can really get fine detail out of it, more so than you might be able to with a paintbrush, although I've seen people do some pretty incredible things. But with the pencil, you can really get those really fine points, like you were saying about your picture with Russell Wilson, how you could set your nose on it and still see that fine detail. That's what you're going to want out of this new Champions print, for example.
Yeah, totally. And it's been a gift and a curse, I guess, since this is my kind of approach to art, where people will just kind of walk past it because they assume it's a photo and they think nothing of it.
Yeah.
Well, so it never even gets seen.
But I think that's also kind of the beauty of the thing, right? Like almost hidden in plain sight, or they don't know what they're missing until they stop and look at it, And for the people who do stop and appreciate it, I think that's probably more impactful for them than it would have been for the person who just passed by anyway.
Well, that's the fun part, is that aha moment.
Yeah.
Just watching people's eyes light up when, one, they realize it's a piece of art, and then two, it was done with just a pencil. So everyone has used a pencil or has drawn with a pencil. They kind of know what it's like to try to create something. So when they kind of connect the two dots, they're like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you ever set it up on display and just kind of sit back as the artist and watch people? I would enjoy that. That would be fun to me.
we do that at like gallery openings and stuff. So, I mean, I've been a part of a few different gallery showcases where I wasn't the only artist there. So people probably, weren't obviously going there to see me per se. So they don't even know who the heck I am. So I'm just like chilling off to the side as they, look at my work, talk about it, and you get to kind of
hear it.
That, which is a pretty cool perspective to watch people enjoy your work.
I would just walk up and start trash talking it, and you coming up and being like, "This guy sucks."
Well, we had that Kaepernick piece on display, so I was looking over my shoulder at the event.
That's awesome. Safe. Well, cool, Keegan. So tell people, I guess, where they can learn more about you, where they can find your work, and maybe how they could contribute to some of the causes that you work with.
Yeah, I mean, so everything is at KeeganHall.com. That's kind of the hub for everything. And then I'm on every social network, just searching, Keegan Hall, same thing. And then I even have on the website lots of different charity prints are available for purchase right there. So everything that gets sold there does get donated. And we're just trying to make a difference one drawing at a time here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any parting shots, Mike? Anything else you'd like to...
No, let's grab lunch next time I'm in town.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Sounds great. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much, Keegan, for making the time. We had to reschedule you one time, so thanks so much for making this happen. And we're really, really grateful for your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. And without anything else, I guess we'll call it a week. Thanks to everybody who tuned in on the live stream. And all of you who will subsequently download this episode. Continue to support the show, eggscast.com. Our guest, Keegan Hall, at KeeganHall.com. That's KeeGan Hall.com. And check out his work and chip in on some of these charities. It's awesome. So, thanks everybody. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next time.